Hello, everyone. Thom Ives here. I'm a little humbled already. I didn't realize that on me today, so that was very interesting. In the heart of my mind, I'm seeing hundreds of people out there, and I want to just say I'm very eager to deliver this message to you today. I'm going to try to help you gain insights into the future on your own. And why I'm saying it just that way will become more apparent as we keep talking. But I need to apologize first. I've kept something from the organizers of this event. Integrated, brilliant integrations is not really the main topic of my talk. The main topic of my talk is the true foundation of data science, and it's not data. It's not even clean data. It's even far more valuable than the greatest artificial intelligence system or theory. Okay, here's the big reveal. Here's what my talk is really about. Here is the future of data science. And guys, I really want you to suspend every doubt you have right now and just travel with me mentally and emotionally. And I want you to believe in your potential. Because if AI is really going to achieve the benefits that it can give mankind, you need to believe in your potential. I want to give you a brief overview of my own history. When I was your age, there was no internet. I had a black and white TV with rabbit ears, a rotary dial telephone. My internet was a couple of encyclopedia sets, and I felt lucky, believe me, and a big phone book so that I could look up what businesses had the pieces and parts I needed to do things with. A guy contacted me over LinkedIn not too long ago and said, I want to be just like you. And I went, are you serious? Your beginnings are so much more advanced than mine. And I want all of you to know, whatever you think of me and the other speakers that are older like me, you're going to become far greater because of where you're starting out in life. You have an amazing starting point. Now, I'm still going to do the best I can for my own future, but I'm excited to contribute to you guys as much as possible because you're going to have a future that's going to extend beyond my time on the planet. But I hope that by giving to you, it really becomes our future because I helped your future. So I'm honored to be part of that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and be speaking in an integrated way, using integrated thinking or integrated brilliance. Potential, like potential energy or voltage potential. We want to put that to work. Let's get it going. Let's make it kinetic. Let's get it into motion. But as soon as that happens, you run into battles. You run into opposing forces, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Well, what do those look like? They're also called hard lessons. Well, a lot of it's difficult people. And again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to run into difficult people. And I know this firsthand because I've been one of those difficult people in the past, and I don't want to be anymore. You're going to encounter harsh criticism and hypercritical people. You're going to encounter setbacks, but I'm encouraging you to drive through. And we're going to find some ways to use the beautiful arts that we learn to help us do better in these regards. Now, even though your future is going to look a lot different, and even though our histories are a lot different, there's still some things that are always the same. So I'm going to leverage from that and try to prepare you guys for your future as much as possible using integrated brilliance. But don't lose sight of this focus. This talk is about you and preparing you for the future. And I mean that each and every one of you that's listening. So some stories regarding this. I worked with a very nice man about 20 years ago. And very brilliant thinker, very brilliant man. And then it wasn't until maybe 5 years ago, I started working with him again. And he'd been through so many battles that he turned into a very harsh, hypercritical person. If you could only see a person's face because of their personality, you would think he was a totally different person. But you know what was still there? His brilliance. And I'm going to talk about this individual without mentioning him by name. I've encountered some bullies, corporate bullies, some intellectual bullies through the course of my career. And the reason I'm bringing this up is you will too, but I don't want these kind of things to slow you down. And I learned to filter this guy's hypercritical nature out and just focus on his brilliance. And as a result, I gained a lot from that ongoing relationship, whereas he did not. One other little story, just to illustrate the kind of battles you can face, and these are at ends of a spectrum. When I was doing my PhD research, I came up with what I thought at the time was a brilliant idea, and I presented it to someone I respected and thought would encourage me. And he was kind of like, so what? Why would you even look at that? I should not have listened to that. 20 years later, that idea is being pursued by some very large companies with great excitement. And that could have been my idea. So I just want to give you some examples of the kind of battles you can face. One other thing was I designed this really cool system to clean a pool that a research reactor was submerged in. And it was a system to clean the surface of that pool. And the design went well, it worked great. The guy that ran the machine shop taught me how to build it myself. I even got to strap dosimeters on my whole body, jump in the water and install it myself. It was a great thing to see it working. But when I first designed it and presented it to the director of our nuclear science center, he completely dismissed it, that won't work. And luckily, this is somewhere in the middle of that spectrum of things that can happen to you. I stood up for it and I said, yes, it will. And he let me go ahead and try it, thinking that would fail, but it absolutely worked. So I just want you to keep those stories in mind as an example of the spectrum of things that can happen to you in your career. But we're going to talk about using integrated brilliance as a way to help you deal with all of those situations more wisely. Okay, so to encounter these battles, you want to find brilliance that helps you get through these resistances, these resistors, to get through these things that try to dissipate your energy. And where do you find this brilliance? Everywhere. Guys, look everywhere, in nature, in science, in history, in the arts, in math, in technology. By the way, there's so many other terms I should have added to this slide. The history of all these things. But from your friends in sales, your friends in marketing, your business friends, always be curious and grow your learning skills. The whole talk could have been just about this. But what I'm wanting you to do is to apply this brilliance to every area of your life. And we're going to give some examples. Grow the depth of your thinking and of seeing new things and the breadth of your thinking. And I hope you all know the name of this man, Michael Faraday, a great geek brother from our past. No matter what you look at, if you look at it closely enough, you were involved in the entire universe. So guys, with every subject you read, try to think more broadly and deeply, but not just in the realm that subject's talking about. Take it outside that realm and into other realms of your life. Okay, now armed with this brilliance, and by the way, this skill is going to grow over the years and decades, so keep practicing it diligently and consistently. You want to always be open to doing what? To integrating those pieces of brilliance. Now, integration itself is something we should integrate. In other words, the spirit or the concept of integration, that's taking little things and adding them together to make a better whole. We also call this being hybrid. I felt so fortunate to do my dissertation research on design and modeling of hybrid electric vehicle power plants. And it was during this era that I first started to learn more specific modern data science skills, but it wasn't even called data science yet. But what's it mean to really integrate or to add things up to make a better whole? How do we do this? Well, briefly, we can do it directly. You know, you learn something brilliant and you just use it directly. For example, you learn how to do linear regression and you put it to use. But also, you can begin to see linear regression conceptually and use it in another area, just philosophically, really stopping to appreciate. And I want you all to begin to think, I'm a philosopher. I'm in philosophy. And you'll see why I'm saying that soon. But take the philosophy of linear regression and reinforced learning and neural networks and back propagation and integration itself, and use those conceptually in other areas of your life, not just our geek areas. One of the most powerful things you can do is you have an idea, but you really want to explore your solution space. So you conceptualize that idea, you generalize it, and then you bring it back down to many other ideas. Now, a lot of times when you're trying to integrate brilliance, you're in a field that's a little softer. It's not something that's always purely mathematic. I'll give you an example, a field that I love that's within the engineering and coding arts, and especially the data science arts. It's called best practices. As you see people that are really good at things, try to get the conceptual understanding of why are they good? What makes them successful at this practice? And you start cataloging the practices of that individual. And then you look at other individuals that are good in that area, and you start cataloging these best practices. Well, that's how a lot of disciplines are formed. And this is a form of integration to study those best practices of successful practitioners in that field and collect these, and it becomes a new discipline. And then, of course, integration, hybridization, same spirit. It's adding things together to make a more effective and better whole. Okay. Now, I love theory, and theory is beautiful, and we all need to be good at theory, but eventually, to make use of those theories, we need to implement it. So let's go through some examples of integrating brilliance. And I want to circle back and remind you why we're going at it this way. I'm trying to save you from as many hard lessons in the future as possible, but I know you're still going to have hard lessons. And so I also know your hard lessons are going to be different than mine were. I'm trying to show you I'm a student of what I'm teaching you today. I never want to declare I'm a master because it's too big. I want to be a student with you. And I'm inviting you to do this so that you can deal with your future battles more effectively than I've dealt with mine. And I want you to take the brilliance from these examples and exploit them. And I mean exploit in the good way in your own lives. So examples. Now, I wish I could say I've originated this, but I haven't. If you look back and study Socrates, and the only way we know about Socrates is from his most famous student, Plato. They both said the unexamined life is not worth living. And this is what I'm inviting you guys to do. Examine your lives, but use the beautiful things we learn in our data science arts and other areas of life and integrate those things into your life to make you more effective. You, the future of data science and AI, to make you more effective and have a more powerful future. Above the entrance to Plato's school, it said, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here." And for the 15 years you were at his academy, he made sure 10 of those years were devoted to the study of science and math. Why? He was trying to create great philosophers. How did he do that? He understood the importance of integrating brilliance. He knew that he could create better thinkers, better reasoners, more logical minds if they were steeped in math and science. I think he would be envious of the level of math and science we know, because a lot of smart people before us have done the hard work of figuring things out. And even though it's hard for us to figure them out, we get to learn it faster because they did all the heavy lifting for us. So if Plato were alive now, he'd say, why aren't you guys integrating all this and using it to help you become more powerful philosophers? So our hats are off. Please join me. Hats off. Bowing. Thank you, Plato, for helping us think this way. Now, that's the history, but let me give you someone who did a brilliant integration. Southwest Airlines, it's actually a business run from my hometown where I was born and raised, Dallas, Texas. They're out of a airfield there called Love Field, and they wanted to improve their profitability. And after a lot of analysis, they realized if they could increase the turnaround time, make the turnaround time for their planes at the gates faster, they could make more money. Well, what did they go and study to get better at that? Race pit crews. And they did that concept idea. It's also called benchmarking, but it's really another form of integrating brilliance. So after studying those race pit crews very carefully, they abstracted the process there into a generalized process, and then they mapped it over onto their own processes for turnaround time at the gates, and the results were phenomenal. Now, it's funny, it's called integrating brilliance for a reason, because integration itself is one of the most wonderful things in the world to me, and let me tell you why. I started out my predictive analytics background in the area of multi-physical systems, multi-realm physics, and learned to take gobs of differential equations from different types of systems like electrical, mechanical, translational, mechanical, rotational, chemistry, thermo, everything, and integrate those differential equations into one big system. But at the key, the foundation of being able to do that is integrating. And if you take too large a time step in your integrations, or you take your solutions will be inaccurate. But if you take too small, it's just painfully slow to wait on the results. And you need to do several virtual experiments to improve your prototype, your conceptual prototype. But there are many calculus equations that we cannot solve without digital integration. Even before digital computers, when researchers would hit limits, they used analog computers, and they used something called generalization to get there. But we need to be very grateful for digital integration in calculus, because it's changed what we're able to do. But the limits we hit there are what drove us to start looking at things like expert systems and reinforced learning, because they break the boundaries that we couldn't break with just simply integrating systems of differential equations. And to this point, bond graphs, it's a way to visualize the relationship and the energy flows that happen between the elements of a multi-physical system, or even just a single physical realm system. But it does it by doing this concept idea, where it takes the energy storage and energy dissipation elements of a multi-physical system, and it turns it into generalized energy storage and dissipation elements. That way you can speak one language, one mathematical language that's visual. And a very brilliant professor, forgive me for forgetting his name, but he's one of my favorite figures from the past, really emphasized to his students to always be thinking deeper and more broadly. He was an integrated thinker. And I've got to tell you, I couldn't have accomplished my research without this level of generalization and bond graphs. Now, this is perhaps the most important example, and it will take us back to some of those earlier stories I brought up. How can we integrate? And by the way, with integration and bond graphs, it's an example of how do we philosophically benefit from those. As you're learning, as you're growing, as you're going through your life, don't try to take too large a step nor too small a step, but it'll take time. Learn to find the best step size for your growth, for your work, for everything. But always try to find ways to create maps that relate the elements of your work and the elements of your life together so you can see it better, so you can see the way the energy is flowing. And I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg examples of how you can exploit these two beautiful principles in your life. So control systems, how do they basically work? Let's just get down to the raw philosophy of it. You send in a desired state you want your system to be in. It's a signal, and it passes through the control. It goes into the controller, but also coming into the controller is where the state of the system is currently. And those two states are compared, and then a different signal is made. But sometimes noise can come into that signal too. So for that controller to do a good job controlling that system, you absolutely need to do a good job of rejecting the noise and getting the pure signal. Let's go back to the example of that man that I knew that used to be really nice, and then he became very hypercritical, but at the same time, he was still brilliant. Well, the way I benefited from that relationship is whenever he had a criticism from me, or frankly now, anytime I feel someone's criticizing me, I stop and I think, okay, let me filter out the emotion here. I care about my personal growth. That's exciting to me. I like watching myself improve in my skills and my abilities, my effectiveness in working with other people and using data science to serve the greater needs. I want to take that benefit that I'm hearing here, even if it's hypercritical, and use it to adjust my system, to adjust my state. Also, if it comes in as hypercritical, I can filter it. Sometimes people flatter us, and what they're telling us isn't useful at all. We got to be good at filtering that too, but do it politely. Now, this really bugged me for a long time. There's a lot of personality assessments or personal assessments out there, but I really think the Gallup Strength Finder is exceptionally good, but there was something about it that really disturbed me. And one day I was programming and it hit me. I program a lot. I programmed since, this is embarrassing, since probably 1980, I started programming. And I've been through all sorts of languages in those years and all sorts of methods. But one thing that's been consistent, I've had to deal with a lot of error messages. And then even once my code is working, I got to ask, is it running fast enough? Should I refactor it? Is it going to be too hard to maintain? Can I form out the output better? The Gallup Strength Finder is wonderful because it identifies your greatest strengths and encourages you to exploit those. But I would say that's falling short. I'd rather do that and be more like a programmer to my greater life. I've had to encounter some really ugly things about myself in the past, some character flaws. I was injured deeply in my past by something, and I had to learn to deal with it. And those were dark times for me. But if I hadn't really sought healing from that injury, if I hadn't really tried to deal with it like I have to deal with an error in my code or poor performance from my code, I couldn't have grown as a person. And so what I'm trying to say we can take away from this is, even when we're not programming, in the greater part of our lives, let's keep identifying what we're strong at, but what we're most weak at too, and use the strengths, but also let's find ways together to help one another improve our weaknesses. Also, systems maintenance. Some of you might have even seen some of my LinkedIn posts on stuff like this, but you know, I really feel stupid on this one because I studied some really advanced system maintenance techniques, predictive maintenance, how we can use vibration measurements and all sorts of states measurements on systems like temperature and pressure and everything to do predictive maintenance so that, yeah, we have a maintenance schedule, but how can we be more efficient financially in this regard? Because we certainly don't want any downtime from the system. We certainly want it to perform at its peak. So we can put sensors all over the system and see maybe the measurements from these sensors will give us advance notice of when we need to do a maintenance that we weren't aware of, instead of only relying on the maintenance schedule. Well, why don't we do that with ourselves too? You know, what's the most important component to your data science work? Your mind. But your mind's part of your body, and your body's a complete system. So if you really want to have the sharpest mind, be at your peak health, yes, you're going to have to take time away from your data science studies. Oh God, that's scary. I know, because we have so much to learn. But you need to take time away from that to keep yourself healthy and at your peak health, and to be rested, because that's when your mind can be sharpest. And reinforcement learning. Some of you may have also seen my LinkedIn post on this, but they're fascinating. If you've seen the limits we can encounter when the dimensionality is too big, it's really important to start looking at reinforcement learning, because it has a very creative way of getting to solutions without having to use the entire space of an environment to figure things out. We're going to talk about that a little more. So, armed with these examples, you need to start traveling through your life with this integrated brilliance, but you're going to encounter limits. And I want to show you some clever ways to overcome them. I was really fortunate growing up. I did not grow up with my biological dad, but when I was almost five, my mom married this new guy, and he was a U.S. Marine, tough guy, and but he was a great dad. And as I got older, we went on long tour bike rides to the country, and I was always amazed at how many side roads there were and how they drew me. I wanted to go down those side roads. And then it occurred to me, you know, there's so many side roads in life. There's so many things that can distract you from the main road you're on. But you have to limit the number of those roads you go down. Again, RL example. I had to realize my greatest weakness was I got excited about too many things, and I was running off and chasing too many things, and I wasn't being very good at anything. And when I was studying reinforced learning, it reinforced the idea that I needed to focus better, but that one of the problems, there's so many avenues in life, but when you look at RL systems, reinforced learning systems, they're able to learn without knowing everything. They keep learning by experience. And the nice thing is that if you're careful to control yourself, you can still experience a lot of beauty in your life, but enough beauty. You don't have to do everything in life to still gain adequate experience to achieve great things. And that's the main thing I want to emphasize. So, armed with this level of philosophy, you need to practice with grit. But when I say grit, I don't mean work yourself to death. I mean be persistent, be consistent, be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself, keep practicing, but rest. And when you're rested, get back to work, and then rest some more. And in case you're not getting it, stay rested. I really want to emphasize this. We love to learn. That's why we're data scientists, but We become ultrathon learners. We can study for hours without a break. But when you sense that you're not as sharp anymore, keep your performance up by taking a break. Stay rested. Okay, now we've almost gone all the way around this wheel. What's left? To grow. Grow what? Guys, if you get good at going through all of this in a cycle, you will grow your own potential. Each time you practice this in a new way, your potential will grow. So what are you? You are the most advanced system on the planet. I mean, GPT-3, whatever. You're like GPT 1 millions. You're the most advanced systems on the planet. Artificial intelligence is nothing without the likes of you, and it's not going to become much greater if you don't become greater. So this talk was aimed at you, helping you to know how to deal with hard lessons. Shoot, let's face it. Even if there were no hard lessons, you just had to learn the data science, even that by itself is hard enough. So all these lessons are to help you deal with the opposing forces, the battles, but also the difficulties we face in just mastering data science arts. So please become great using this integrated brilliance, please, for yourself and for the future. Thank you.